This one says, there's still time to surrender. Maybe a bad choice of words, considering.
Time to surrender? What's the context here?
This was last year, September. These leaflets, they were dropped maybe a day before the fighting began. You see, the guerrillas there, they'd found themselves a new leader. Charismatic, ex-military. For him, this was no time to surrender. Far from it. In fact, he used that time to rally his people, encourage them to resist, build defenses. Meanwhile, the army was setting up for a major offensive. The attack on Oreo Castro? It was no secret. Of course, after the leaflet drop, IDAP started to pull out of the town. So the little I do know, well, that brings us back to the brother. The one who disappeared. His name was Alexis. He'd volunteered to build a barricade. Town was his home, after all.
So, these leaflets, they were a warning to the town?
Yeah, they confirmed the offensive.
The government was concerned about civilian casualties.
Don't sound too surprised.
So, NATO's message, do you think it was getting through? I mean, according to the laws of armed conflict, that's the principle of precaution, right?
Sure, maybe. Or maybe they were just sick of all the extra paperwork. By that point, the guerrillas were short on vehicles, damaged, destroyed, or otherwise. They had to improvise.
If I understand it, you know about what happened through the brother. Alexis, was it? Did you meet him?
Not directly, but, you know, it's a small town, right? People knew Alexis. After what happened here, I talked to the locals. Found out what I could. The rest of what I know is pieced together from the commission report itself.
Actually, that incident report, the evidence you submitted, that's partly why I asked for the interview. I want to gain a human perspective.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, for a humanitarian commission, those reports tend to be,
A little detached, yes. At what point did things become unsafe in the center of town?
Well, I'm not sure it was ever completely safe. Even before things escalated, we were concerned about being accidentally targeted. And to be honest, it didn't matter where we moved. That always remained a concern.
Do you think Alexis, I don't know, thought twice about taking these vehicles?
Look, sure, these were his neighbors, but this was their home, and it was under attack. Alexis could get from A to B on a quad bike, sure enough, but apparently working a clutch. His name was Alexis. He'd volunteered to build a barricade. Town was his home, after all.
So, these leaflets, they were a warning to the town.
Yeah, they confirmed the offensive.
The government was concerned about civilian casualties.
Don't sound too surprised.
So, NATO's message, do you think it was getting through? I mean, according to the laws of armed conflict, that's the principle of precaution, right?
Sure, maybe. Or maybe they were just sick of all the extra paperwork.
Do you think Alexis, I don't know, thought twice about taking these vehicles?
Look, sure, these were his neighbors, but this was their home, and it was under attack. What would you do?
Help me out with some context here. This barricade.
I mean, it was crude, right? A gap between two outcrops of rock, natural bottleneck. The guerrillas hoped to block the road by jamming it with vehicles. As for the vehicles in the barricade, the commission actually linked the plates to a number of locals. Of course, several were still missing after the incident, so the investigation made some assumptions.
If I understand it, you know about what happened through the brother. Alexis, was it? Did you meet him?
Not directly, but, you know, it's a small town, right? People knew Alexis. After what happened here, I talked to the locals. Found out what I could. The rest of what I know is pieced together from the commission report itself.
Actually, that incident report, the evidence you submitted, that's partly why I asked for the interview. I want to gain a human perspective.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, for a humanitarian commission, those reports tend to be,
A little detached, yes. So, just to clarify, in your email you said you served as a combat engineer, the Marine Corps?
That's right. South Zagoria, Generous.
Then it's fair to say you're no stranger to the subject of my article, the laws of armed conflict.
I've seen a few things, heard stories. It's rarely been, clear-cut, right and wrong. Hey, just a thought. You remember the earthquakes back then?
Yes, they were quite frequent. Were IDAP at all concerned about that?
Oh, yeah. Any kind of disaster relief on top of what we were dealing with, it would have just about finished us off completely.
Contact soldiers!
These vehicles, I suppose all of them were taken without consent.
Well, yeah, given the circumstances. The owners couldn't exactly refuse.
Right, but that's the thing. Never mind theft being illegal. The laws of armed conflict prohibit such actions. After Alexis built the barricade, what then? Did he stay inside the town?
No, that's where the story gets more complicated. The barricade itself was later chained up and set on fire by someone else. I don't know quite who. Alexis, he headed west to lay mines. Anti-tank mines were already in the ground. If there's no pull fuse, and so long as they've not been stacked, they aren't too hard to remove. But Alexis, although he didn't use anti-handling devices, he did create a hybrid minefield.
AT mines. Mixed with APs?
That's it, yeah. He put anti-personnel mines around the anti-tank ones, made clearance all that much harder.
These mines, how did they get hold of them?
They got them when the government's outposts fell into guerrilla hands. Bounding mines. The type that leaps up a meter into the air before exploding. Nasty stuff. Hell, nowadays they're even made with plastic casing to throw off older types of mine detector.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, just do yourself a favor. Don't look up Bouncing Betty injuries online.
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. And not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were, it may not do much good.
No? I thought minefield maps were a key part of your work.
Most folks don't realize, but landmines, they don't stay put. Heavy rain, landslides, keeping a map current ain't so simple. And with all the earth...
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. And not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak.
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. And not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were...
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. And not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were, Alexis proved to be quite the combat engineer. He placed the mines exactly as he'd been shown.
So, moving on, where did Alexis go next?
He took a quad bike up to the castle behind the town.
The castle? Why?
He was needed at the guerrillas' base camp.
Okay. His group were running things from up at the castle.
Mm-hmm. And I see what you're getting at. Yeah, Geneva Convention's cultural objects, I think.
The barricade. There wasn't any way around it then?
From the road? No, well, not unless you cut through the compound.
Maybe a technical question.
Go ahead.
In these situations, do those involved commonly record the locations of minefields?
That's a tough one. Take this situation, for example. I'm convinced Alexis would have made a record. It's his home, after all. But do we have access to that information? No. And that's the problem. Things, information, people, landmines, they get lost in the fog of war. But that's the thing about landmines. Lost or not, they stick around. They wait to be found.
Do you feel these preparations made a difference?
In the short term, I do, yeah. The barricade held. The government's tanks were knocked out on the road.
And in the long term?
I'd go on, but as you may have heard, it's getting kind of loud here.
By the sounds of it, you've got your hands full.
This'll only take a minute. Be right back.
Bet you wish we had one of those in Pakistan, huh?
I gotta admit, that's 60 tons of getting shit done.
Oh, by the way, while you were busy chatting to, well, whoever that is that isn't your wife...
I told you, Andy, she's a journalist. Get to the point.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I assembled the demining drones.
Both of them?
Well, yeah. They're by the van.
All right, got the terminal.
Cool. So just connect it to a drone and, yeah, take control.
You got it?
Looking good.
So, you're gonna want to use the auto hover mode. Switch it on whenever you need to stay in one place.
Auto hover, right.
I'll arm the explosives once you've reached the minefield. Heads up. Enabling charges. Okay, now, the bombs. You only got 4. Release one and it'll drop straight down. Simple physics. If you run out, fly over to the van. There's plenty spare.
Thanks.
Having fun there?
Making things go boom, you know it. These demining charges pack quite a punch. What's in them?
500 grams of Crovex water gel, baby.
I'm out.
Don't sweat it. Steer back on over to the van. I'll rearm you. Safety's on.
Understood. Shit. Yeah, I think I just totaled our drone.
Sweet Lord, give me patience. All right. Let's use the other one. Maybe we can say it malfunctioned.
Question. How can I see if I've gotten all the mines?
Your drone's got a sensor. Get close enough, and it'll detect any nearby explosives. How's it going?
Getting there. Gonna need another resupply.
Max, same deal. you are. Set it down where you started. Over by those white containers. Seriously? Nathaniel Francis McDade, how big is this minefield?
Only my mom calls me Francis, Andy.
Yeah, sure thing, Franny Mac. Anyway, you know the drill. Send it back for resupply.
All right, almost done. it. What the fuck was that?
Relax, relax. It sounds like it came from the other side of town. You want me to take a look?
No, stay put. I'll go.